Your chance to catch the men who did it. Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We'll have that unbelievable raid on a heavily pregnant woman and her neighbours in just a moment. But first, a quick look at tonight's other appeals. We're coming to you live from a studio packed with detectives, all hoping that you can help solve their cases, including the officer leading the British review into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. We'll have the very latest on the hunt for Madeleine, who on Thursday will have been missing for 5 years. Officers from Cambridgeshire are here too. They want to know who it was that brutally murdered a retired farmer in an appalling attack. It happened just a few days before Christmas.
I think that this is a burglary that's gone wrong.
Walker, can I help you?
Sorry to bother you this time of night.
This was a savage attack.
Hey, what are you doing in your house? This is my bedroom! Better on the camera! Get the
Awful. And Martin is back with more wanted faces.
Yes, and tonight we've got people wanted for kidnap, rape and arson, as well as some incredible CCTV, including this guy, who lost the plot because he didn't have the right change for the bus.
And officers also need your help to track down the rapist who attacked a teenage girl in southeast London.
I just carried on walking, and then I heard footsteps behind me.
You going, love?
I felt quite scared and just that I had to do what he was saying.
Get in the bushes.
Awful. And Matthew is here with the chilling story of how police caught a sadistic murderer.
Yes, John Sweeney is known to have killed and dismembered at least 2 of his girlfriends, hiding clues to his crimes in his lurid artwork.
Well, they primarily depicted women being dismembered. There were references to girlfriends of his. We asked ourselves a simple question: what are the chances of him having 2 girlfriends who would, by accident, are killed by someone else? And when you put together the artwork and the poetry that we had, our conclusion was that he was obviously the prime suspect.
And also tonight, the 2 raids on museums in recent weeks targeting incredibly rare, incredibly beautiful Chinese artefacts. They are worth millions. Can you name the suspects? They were caught on CCTV. But we begin tonight with that shocking raid on 2 neighbouring homes in the village of Woollerton in Shropshire. It happened less than a month ago during the Easter holidays. And I should warn you that the gang responsible subjected the 2 mothers and their children to truly appalling levels of violence.
You know you got a safe.
Get in there. Please don't hurt me.
Some nights, when you close your eyes, things come back. Visions.
Wait, no.
Images, mainly the knife.
I promise I haven't.
Nothing really feels real.
This is Woollerton, a small village in Shropshire. And this country lane leads to the secluded houses of 2 young families. But just before Easter, their peaceful lives were shattered when a gang of armed men burst into not just one, but both of their homes.
We moved into this house in 2009, 6 months after my first son was born.
Chose to move to this place because it's nice and quiet, good place to bring up the kids.
And this is where we'll be bringing my second child up, who is due any day.
For the Ratherhams, the morning of April the 5th started like any other.
Oops. My husband, he got up and got ready and went off to work as normal at around 8 o'clock. Have a good day.
Thanks. See you, mate.
Bye, Dad.
But Victoria, 8 months pregnant, had no idea she was being watched.
Got myself and my son ready because we were going off round to my mother's. We were just about ready to leave when the dogs started barking, and I thought maybe somebody at the door.
Don't move! Don't! Scream!
Please don't hurt me, I'm pregnant.
You are me, Mummy.
I don't know, darling.
It's all right, me and Mummy just playing a little game. Where's your money?
I haven't got any money.
You've got a safe! Don't lie!
They kept asking me for a safe, and I haven't got a safe, but I was so scared that if they didn't find a safe, they'd hurt me thinking that there was one, and it was terrifying.
You have got a safe! Don't lie! Try it!
I was thinking, I'm carrying a baby, I need to try and keep calm because I could have gone into labour.
Sit down and shut up. Put your hands behind your back. Now! Closer! Have you got a phone?
I was sat down and he actually put his hands on my stomach to feel if there was anything in my pockets. I've never felt so sick in all my life. There was actually a cheque left on the side in the kitchen. And when they looked at it, they started asking lots of questions about who I was.
What's your name?
Rotherham.
I didn't really understand to start with why.
Who lives over there?
And then all of a sudden it dawned on me that maybe they weren't really looking for me.
Get out of here.
But the men weren't going far. Having taken all of the phones, they left Victoria tied up in the nursery and headed for the house next door. Catherine Burton's husband had already left for work. It was school holidays, so their teenage daughter and 11-month-old baby were still in bed. Their 15-year-old son, Will, was in his room.
Open this door! Open this door now! Open this broken! Open this door now! Open this door now! No! Do it!
Fire, police or ambulance?
Get here now! Get here! Where's the money?
There's no money!
Come on, the safe!
What are you talking about? There's no safe!
Oh, shut up! There's a safe! Don't lie!
Terrified and bleeding heavily, Catherine was too dazed to take in what happened next, as her son Will desperately tried to protect her.
Get back! Get here! Get him out! Where is the safe? Come on!
Taking just mobile phones and 2 laptops, the gang drove off in the family's Land Rover Discovery. Alerted by Catherine's attempted 999 call, police arrived minutes after the attackers had fled. But it was too late. The stolen Land Rover was found dumped 300 metres down the road, with its engine still running. Police think this is where the gang swapped cars. And this was a really vicious attack, and quite unusually, on 2 families with very young children.
Yes, it was a very nasty attack. As you've seen, Catherine was hit over the head with a machete, and her son, bravely coming to her assistance, was then hit on the hand with that same machete, slicing the hand right down to the bone.
Really is horrific. Now, you believe that the premises were being watched?
We've got very good grounds to believe the premises were being watched. Both on the night before and on the morning, we've got witnesses coming forward talking of a silver saloon car in the area with up to 4 men in it, possibly a Volvo S40 model. That car we believe to be the getaway vehicle and would have been driven away from the Discovery that was dumped about 300 yards down the road.
It's terrifying beyond belief. I think it's so scary that you don't actually realise what's happening until afterwards.
It's clearly had an effect on her, particularly for the first few days. She would struggle sleeping. She's still quite anxious at home, very jumpy if she hears a noise.
In my mind, there's only really one way to cope, and that is to not really believe it's happened. If you think of it as a nightmare, you wake up the next morning and you get on with your life. And the only way I can deal personally with this situation is by making myself believe that it never really happened. You don't do what they did to me and threaten a pregnant woman without having no conscience at all. They didn't care. And then to think that they actually went on to hurt a boy and his mother is just horrendous. There's just no way to describe how scared you are when you think somebody might do something to one of your kids, because you'd put your life down to protect them. You really would.
Men with no conscience at all. DCI Alan Edwards from West Mercia Police joins us now. We saw him there in the reconstruction. You've got some pretty good e-fits. Just take us through them, would you, Alan?
Yeah, by releasing these e-fits tonight, I'm making a strong appeal to the criminal community to give these men up. The first two e-fits are of the same man. And that man is the person there who has the machete, and I believe he's in charge of the group that went in and carried out the attack. The final e-fit is of the man that was going around with the bat during that attack.
OK, they're pretty clear pictures, those. You are very interested in this, it was a silver saloon car that we saw. Tell us more.
The silver saloon car was seen the night before and on the morning. And what I need to do is to find out where that car is. Now, we're being told it's possibly a Volvo S40. Right. Maybe a 03 or a 04 plated car. So I really need to know where that car is, or if anybody saw that car being driven as part of the getaway.
You've got a map here of the local area. Can you just point out the possibilities of where the attackers went?
They've come out of the village and they've gone north towards Turn Hill. Right. Now, they've either gone up the A53 or the A41, both going north. The main attacker had a Merseyside accent, so I believe it's a possibility they've gone towards Liverpool. OK, Alan,
for now, thanks very much. You saw that there. A truly harrowing experience for these families and their children. That gang clearly needs to be caught before they do it again. If you can help, I would urge you to call us now. There's the number, 0500 600 600, or you can call the independent charity Crime Stoppers and do that anonymously. They're on 0800 555 111. Now Martin's got the first of tonight's Wanted Faces.
We start tonight with 36-year-old Stephen John Walker. He's wanted for conspiracy to supply cocaine and for the possession of 2 shotguns. He was convicted in his absence and is facing a sentence of more than 16 years. Walker, who's also known to use the name James Head, has a scar on his upper lip. He has links to Spain and Norway. Next is Jermaine Lewis. Police want to speak to the 33-year-old in connection with an assault during which a woman was pistol whipped. Lewis, who also uses the first names Leroy, Quincy and Miller and the surname Brown, has a gold tooth, scars on his face and left hand, and although you can't see it in this photo, his left ear is disfigured. He has connections across London and is considered to be dangerous. So if you see him or know where he is, call 999 immediately. Number 3 is Carl Ronald Brace. The 43-year-old is wanted after being caught with 10,000 ecstasy tablets in a pub car park in Hertfordshire. He failed to turn up at court and was convicted in his absence last September and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Brace also has links to London, but detectives think he may now be in Spain, as he's previously lived and worked there. And finally, for now, is 29-year-old Wayne Jackson. Police want to speak to him about a few things, including absconding from prison and 5 burglaries. Jackson, who has a Liverpudlian accent and the name Leah, spelled L-E-A-H, tattooed on his right arm, also has connections to Manchester and Southampton. All of tonight's faces are on the website, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. And if you know where they are, call 0500 600 600, or you can text 63399. Type crime, leave a space, and then leave your message.
Now, just a few days before Christmas, the body of 76-year-old Llewellyn Thomas was found at his home in Chittering in Cambridgeshire. The retired farmer had suffered a sustained and brutal attack at the hands of intruders. Tonight, police need your help to find his killers.
I was approaching the house and I saw lots of blue flashing lights. As I got closer still, I saw there was lots of tape around the house.
Just take a seat in there.
I knew something dreadful had happened.
Get off me! Get off! Get off! Get out! What are you doing? Get off!
13 years ago, 76-year-old Llewellyn Thomas moved from South Wales to Chittering, here in rural Cambridgeshire. After a lifetime of hard work, the retired farmer wanted to spend more time with his son Richard. But on the 17th of December last year, Llewellyn was brutally murdered in his own home in what police believe was a burglary gone horribly wrong.
My father was always smiling. If you met him in a room full of people, you wouldn't necessarily mark him out as being excessively sort of loud or chatty or anything. But the extraordinary thing was he was always someone that you remembered. He was a happy man. Yes, he was my father, but I would have chosen him as my friend because we spent so much time and had so many shared interests.
Llewellyn spent the afternoon of Saturday the 17th of December at home while his son Richard attempted to repair his car.
I got this last Christmas. Now, look, what I thought, if we pull the key...
Later that evening, Llewellyn settled in front of the television. Richard left the house at around 7 o'clock.
Right, Dad, I'm off now. Hope your numbers come up. See you tomorrow, then. Ta-ra.
At 10 to 9, Llewellyn received a telephone call from a friend.
Hello? It's you. Oh, yes.
And the sixth one that could make you very rich.
The call ended at 9:24 p.m.
That was lovely. Ta-ra, then.
That was to be the last time anyone heard from him.
We don't know exactly what happened next, but police think the intruders arrived at the property sometime after that phone call ended. The house is situated beside the A10 and is difficult to reach on foot, so it's likely the intruders arrived by car.
Detectives think the robbers may have knocked on the door before blagging their way into the house.
Hello, can I help you?
Sorry to bother you this time of night, but our car's overheated. Just need to get some water for the radiator.
Oh, it's a bit late, though.
Oh, we'll only be a minute. Where's the kitchen?
Oh, it's over there. It's over there.
So,
don't take too long, all right?
Once inside, one of the intruders may have distracted Llewellyn while their accomplice searched the house for valuables.
Hang on. Where's your mate? Go on.
He won't be a minute.
Get off me. Get off.
What is certain is he suffered a vicious attack in his own bedroom.
Hey, what are you doing in there? Get off me, you stupid old fool. What are you doing? What are you doing? Get off me. Get off. Get off. What are you doing?
He was kicked, punched and beaten round the head with a blunt object. It was a gratuitously violent assault on a defenceless old man.
The killers then stole Llewellyn's silver Rover 75, but they couldn't have chosen a worse getaway car. The Rover had a mechanical fault, which meant it was stuck in second gear. It made a lot of noise, and it couldn't go above 30 miles an hour.
They headed south along the A10 towards Milton. Traffic soon began to build up behind the slow-moving car. At around 10:15, a witness reported seeing at least 2 vehicles overtaking the Rover. The car turned off at the A10 towards Milton, where it was abandoned in Church Lane sometime between 10:15 and 11:30 that night. It wasn't till a neighbour noticed Llewellyn's front door open the next day and called the police that his body was discovered. The detectives leading the case believe Llewellyn's killers may not have set out to commit murder.
I think that this is a burglary that's gone wrong. I believe that Llewellyn probably disturbed the burglars upstairs in his house, rummaging through his property, or indeed he was dragged upstairs by the burglars in order that they could search his property. And this is the room where he was found.
And the levels of violence here were horrific, weren't they?
This was a savage attack upon Llewellyn. We think he would have been punched to the face. He would have been struck around the back of the head with a poker or a crowbar, causing a large fracture.
It's almost beyond belief.
It's unbelievable that anybody would use this level of violence towards an elderly gentleman.
whoever is close to these people should see what their son, their daughter, their father, their mother, their friend, their brother has done. Because they may have done it before, they may do it again. And if neither of those is true, then they just need to see what they've done to one gentle old boy.
What a tragedy. Well, DCI George Barr, we saw him in the film here, is with us. Now, Mr. Thomas was hit many times, very violently, with, you think, a blunt object, and you think this might be the very thing.
Yes, we think Llewellyn was struck with a crowbar or a poker. A poker similar to the one you have in your hand is missing from the property and has not been recovered.
OK, what about other items? What else was taken?
Well, 3 watches were taken, a tag watch, a reproduction Breitling and a Seiko Bellmatic watch. There's also a small coin collection that's also missing, and I would be interested to hear from anyone that may have been offered those items for sale.
And George, in terms of witnesses, do you think it's likely that people might have seen the gang arrive or seen them leave?
Yes, I think that's very possible. We believe that Mr. Thomas was killed between 9:25 p.m. and 10:20 p.m. on Saturday the 17th of December. That was the week before Christmas. Yeah. The road, the A10, would have been busy on that particular night. We think the offenders would have arrived by car and left. If anyone saw a vehicle at the property on that night, arriving or leaving, then please get in touch with us.
And you could maybe do with more details on this Rover 75. You have recovered it, but you could do with more information surrounding it.
Yes, the silver Rover 75 was stolen. It had a mechanical problem, which meant it couldn't drive at more than 30 miles per hour. The vehicle was seen on the A10 going southbound towards Milton, and the cars were backed up behind that vehicle. We know at least 2 vehicles overtook that vehicle, and I'd be interested in hearing from the motorists that were driving that night.
OK, George, thanks very much. We should tell people there's also a substantial reward of 50 grand connected to this crime. A terrible end for a man just quietly enjoying his retirement. We urgently need your help on this case tonight. You saw the amount of violence that was used. You can speak directly to George and his colleagues here. The number is 0500 600 600. Now it's time for the latest news on some of our previous appeals.
Well, we start with an excellent result in a case we featured in December 2010. 53-year-old Julian Gardner was killed after disturbing a gang of thieves who'd broken into his Sussex farm in October of that year. Well, last month, 7 men from Kent were jailed for a total of 45 years after being found guilty of a number of offences in connection with Mr. Gardner's death. 4 of them were convicted of his manslaughter, 6 with conspiracy to commit burglary, and all 7 were found guilty of conspiracy to pervert the course of justice.
Next, news of a case we appealed about in November 2010. 63-year-old former bookmaker Don Banfield went missing from his West London home in 2001. Despite not finding a body, police were convinced that Mr. Banfield had been murdered. And last month, his wife, 64-year-old Shirley Banfield, and his 40-year-old daughter Lynette were convicted of his murder. It was revealed they'd continued to draw his pensions after his disappearance, and they'd both been sentenced to life in prison.
Now, you may remember this face from our last programme. He's 26-year-old Kirk Bradley, who was one of 2 men sprung from a prison van in Manchester last July while on trial for running a dangerous underworld gang in Liverpool. Well, just days after our appeal, he was arrested by armed police in Amsterdam. Once back in the UK, he faces a life sentence, having already been convicted in his absence. Great result.
Another update from our last programme when we had officers in the studio investigating the murder in Northern Ireland. During the evening, they received information from viewers about a completely separate murder, which we featured in 2006. That of 73-year-old Norman Moffat, who was stabbed as he returned from buying his morning paper in Coleraine in January 2001. Subsequently, a man has been arrested and charged with Mr. Moffat's murder. We'll keep you updated on how that case progresses.
Finally, this is Barry Williamson, a prolific burglar who was on the Wanted Faces board in January. As a direct result of a call to the police, Williamson was arrested at a B&B in Blackpool and has been convicted of 4 burglaries. 39 other offences were taken into consideration. He was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment, all thanks to that single vital call. Martin.
Time now for some new CCTV, starting with a nasty Valentine's Day attack. And there's certainly no love lost here. It's about 1:45 in the morning as a man in a white T-shirt carrying a dark top walks across Southgate Place in Bath city centre. He meets a man coming the opposite way and the two appear to argue, with the man in white jabbing the other guy in the chest. The pair are joined by two other men and the disagreement escalates. Just as the CCTV operator zooms in, things get serious. The man in white grabs the victim, who still has his hands in his pockets, round the face before punching him. The blow knocked the victim out and the fall caused a serious wound to the back of his head. His attacker then grabs his arm, appearing to try and revive him. The man in white hangs around for a while, but scarpers when security guards turn up. Police want to trace this man, who was at a local nightclub earlier in the evening. Is this you, or do you know him? If so, be a love and call us tonight. We're inside a bookies in Merthyr Tydfil during the early hours of the Monday morning following this year's Grand National. The calm and a lot of glass is shattered when a stolen Daihatsu 4-track is reversed straight through the shop front. Three men, one wielding a crowbar, rush in and have a quick look around. They clearly thought they were odds-on for a big payout, but didn't bet on the shop security system being so sophisticated, leaving empty-handed after just a few seconds. Take a look at our photo finish and become the bookies' favourite. Tell us who they are. A Friday morning last October at Deanwood scrap metal dealers in Aldershot. A dark green Vauxhall Vectra pulls into the yard behind a van carrying a load of scrap. A man wearing a balaclava and carrying what looks like a shotgun jumps out and runs up to the site office. He shoves a gun through the window and into the face of the terrified female cashier. He forces the staff to hand over a cash box containing 25 grand. Then he's back to the waiting Vectra, which makes a sharp getaway. You can't see his face, but someone knows who this gun-wielding robber is. Use your metal and name him tonight. We'll have more CCTV a little later, and don't forget that everything you've just seen is on the website.
Right, still to come tonight, the teenager raped as she made her way to meet a friend in the London suburb of Chislehurst.
Knowing that he's still out there is quite scary. He doesn't really think about consequences and how people feel.
The fascinating story of how a killer's grisly artwork helped reveal his obsession with extreme violence.
He draws axes repeatedly in his artwork. Literally, the victim would be touched by him holding the axe. The victim would see the axe. The victim would be terrorized by that.
And those tremendously rare and valuable Chinese artifacts stolen in recent museum raids. Can you help recover the items and catch the thieves responsible?
Well, before all of that, let's interrupt Alan, who's hunting that gang who attacked a pregnant woman and her neighbours. Now, Alan, as soon as our film stopped, the calls have started. What's come in?
We had a number of interesting calls, and one of the calls that I was really interested in is linked offences. We've got a police officer coming in talking about similar offences in the north of England, and I'm really interested in that and moving that on at this time.
You have e-fits, the car that you were asking for information, anything on that?
We've had sightings of similar cars, and we are chasing those up at the moment. But again, I must reiterate, I need the criminal community to come forward and give me those names.
Yeah, this gang needs to be caught. And I'll let you get back to the calls. Kirsty.
Thanks. Now, this Thursday, it'll be 5 years to the day since Madeleine McCann went missing, as I'm sure you know. She was nearly 4 when she disappeared from the Portuguese apartment where she was on holiday with her family. That was in 2007. Following pleas from Madeleine's parents, Jerry and Kate, the Metropolitan Police began a review of the case. That happened in May of last year. Detective Chief Inspector Andy Redwood, who is leading that inquiry, joins us now. Thanks for taking the time, and I know your time is precious. You've got a lot of work to do. Can you just remind us of exactly where the investigation is right now?
Well, we're currently compiling and reviewing material from 3 distinct sources: UK law enforcement, Portuguese law enforcement and private investigators. Some 40,000 parts. My Portuguese police colleagues and I agree, though, that Madeleine McCann was taken as part of a criminal act, which is unsolved, and there is a possibility that Madeleine is still alive.
That picture of little Madeleine is almost seared into the national consciousness. What you've done is something really significant, which is to give us an indication of what Madeleine would look like now, aged almost 9. Tell us more.
Yes, carefully prepared collaboratively with the parents by a UK expert. This image represents Madeleine at 9 years old. And my appeal this evening is simple. I'd like your viewers to look carefully at this image. If you know where Madeleine McCann is, or if you have information about what has happened to her, please make that call this evening.
Now, Andy, we've got a lot of people watching. Is there anybody in particular that you are appealing to tonight?
Yes, if you were in Prada Luz, particularly around the area of the Ocean Club Mark Warner facilities, between the 28th of April and the 3rd of May 2007, either on holiday or in residence, and you have not been spoken to by either the police here or in Portugal, then please ring in this evening. Or if you have any information which you think will help us drive this review on, then please make the call.
No matter how small that might be. Well, next week, Madeleine should have been celebrating her 9th birthday. She should have been doing that with her family. If you have any new information which could help Andy and his team find out what has happened to Madeleine, then please do call our number. It's the usual number, 0500 600 600, or you could call the special incident room. Let me give you that, 0800 096 1011. If you're abroad and you need to call in, it's +44 207 1580 126. OK, it's time now for some more wanted faces. Here's Martin.
First is Kurt Quinn. Police want to speak to him in connection with an arson attack on his former employer's farm last year. An elderly woman was asleep inside the house when a barn attached to it was set alight. 42-year-old Quinn has links to Stockport, but may well have moved out of the area. Next is Rasul Zana Mohammed, but he goes by a number of other names, including Hazem Abdullah and Daman Ibrahimi. Detectives want to speak to the 28-year-old about a rape which happened in Telford in December 2003. Mohammed has links to Wolverhampton, Kent and Yorkshire. Number 7 tonight is James William Mullane. Police want to speak to the 50-year-old in connection with the supply of cannabis with a street value of more than £200,000. Mullane, who's also known to use the first name Simon, will go to great lengths to avoid being arrested and is known to be violent. So if you know where he is, don't approach him. Just call 999 immediately. And finally, tonight is Terence James Cross, who also uses the name Terence Ogboma. Officers want to speak to him about an incident which happened in Manchester last April, during which a 16-year-old boy was kidnapped and held against his will. 39-year-old Cross has links to Salford, but may now be in Ireland. Call 0500 600 600 if you recognise any of tonight's faces, or text 63399. Type crime, leave a space, and then your message.
Now, we really need your help to catch the rapist who attacked a young teenage girl in southeast London last July. She was on her way to meet a friend when she was grabbed by a stranger. You'll hear the victim and her mother describe what happened in this film. Their voices have been changed to protect their identities.
I was just really scared and just didn't know what to do. It's always at the back of my mind what happened.
Late one night in July last year, 2 teenage girls arranged to meet by this pond in the centre of the London suburb of Chislehurst. Their plan was to keep safe by walking home together. But in a terrible turn of events, one of them would be attacked before she made it here.
Yeah, it's going to be really good.
Lovely. Oh, I can't wait to get home.
Yeah, I just want to get home and try on when you start. My mum took me shopping, bought me a few tops, treated me to some shoes and jeans. Just felt like treating me for the day.
We'd managed to spend lots of money, we'd had fun, we'd had a good day, which actually tired me out. Then she'd arranged to go to her friends, and I offered her a lift. She kissed me goodbye and said she'd speak to me later.
Have a great evening, yeah?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for earlier.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll see you later.
OK, don't forget to text.
No, I will.
She was looking forward to going out and meeting up with her mates, and she was specifically going to babysit as well.
After babysitting, I rang my other friend and decided to go find them. I decided to take the quickest route down Chislehurst Road. I was just looking around my surroundings and I saw a car parked. Just carried on walking, didn't think anything of it. I was walking a bit further down the road, going down the hill, and a man approached me and asked me if I knew where Sundridge Park was.
Excuse me, love. Do you know how to get to Sundridge?
And I told him I didn't know where it was exactly, but I knew 314 bus went there. He said thanks, and that was it. He walked off the opposite direction, and I just carried on walking towards Chislehurst. I just thought it was normal, just asking me for directions. Just didn't think anything of it at the time.
Where are you?
My friend rang me to tell me she was by the pond in Chislehurst, and that's where she wanted me to meet her. So I carried on walking, and I got quite far down, and I looked to my left and saw the same car, the same man, looking in the boot, looking for something. So I just carried on walking, and then I heard footsteps behind me.
Where you going, love?
Gonna meet my friends, see if they're okay.
Yeah? Get in the bushes.
I felt quite scared and just that I had to do what he was saying. He was quite, like, aggressive in how he was saying things, and then I just felt like I had to go along with it.
The attacker raped his young victim here, in this wooded area just off the main road. Afterwards, in a bizarre show of concern, he offered to get money from his car so she could have her clothes cleaned.
How old are you?
15.
Look, I'm sorry. Do you need some money? I've only got a £50 note. I'll go and get some change for you, yeah? All right?
I don't need money.
I didn't know what to do, so I waited there for a couple of minutes, and I realised that he didn't come back, so it was my chance to go. And then I just ran down the road. There was a car, because I saw it was women in there, so I thought it'd be okay. And then I found out it was my friend's mum, and I just felt really relieved and just happy that she was there.
If you have any idea who did this, you need to pick up the phone. We have the offender's DNA profile. Now, we need a name to match it to.
Every day I think about it, 100 times a day. I just broke my heart because I think this is no way to start her grown-up years.
Knowing that he's still out there is quite scary, and thinking about how it could happen to other people, because he's obviously quite aggressive and he doesn't really think about consequences and how people feel.
It's really heartbreaking, isn't it? Well, DI Tim Wilkinson from the Met is with us. You saw him in the film there. This young girl has been through a lot, and in spite of that, she has given you an excellent description of this man.
Yes, she has. We're looking for a white male, aged in his 20s, 5'10" or 11 inches tall, blonde hair, medium length, shaved shorter at the sides, and flicked at the front.
What about what he was wearing? Because again, she gave you a very good, clear description on that.
Yeah, he was wearing a dark, buttoned, round neck top, beige chino trousers, and white trainers. White shoes, sorry.
Now, here's a funny thing. he did this, this sort of odd reaching out to her, offering her money to clean her clothes. What do you make of that?
That's right. He offered to give her £50. That's an unusual denomination of note to carry around. We think that could be a big clue in finding out who this man is. He offered to go and get change from his car.
Yeah, what about the car, though? Because I think this is a pretty distinctive car that she's given you a description of.
Yeah, she's clear that it's a Chevrolet Cruze. She saw it at Woodknoll Drive, and then she saw it again with the attacker shortly before she was attacked in Prince Imperial Road at its junction with Wilderness Road.
Very briefly, you said there you got the DNA. That's good news.
It is. That means that anyone can be eliminated very easily from this investigation.
Yeah, so if you have a suspicion, come forward, basically. A dreadful thing to have happened to this young girl, you can help catch the man responsible. If you know anything, give us a call. 0500 600 600. If you've been a victim of crime yourself, you can call victim support. They're on 08 45 30 30 900. Right, it's time now for some more CCTV. Here's Martin.
Now, we all know how annoying it is not to have the right change for the bus, but this is taking things a bit too far. It's a Friday morning in March on board the number 29 bus in Camden Road in North London. A man in a red shirt and dark jacket gets on, but he doesn't have the right fare. When he realises, the would-be passenger becomes just a little angry. He starts a fight with the safety screen and threatens the driver before getting off. But he's not done yet. He rips the bus's wing mirror off and gets back on board, slamming it against the screen, terrifying the driver. This behaviour terminates here. Who is Mr. Angry? Inside a newsagent's in Chalfont St Giles in Buckinghamshire on a Monday afternoon last August. The shopkeeper is confronted by a man with a stocking over his face, waving what looks like a handgun. He might look the part, but this nattily dressed robber doesn't realise the tights on his head are see-through. And Muggins soon loses his nerve, fleeing empty-handed. Name this master of disguise tonight. When it comes to sophisticated outfits, these bright sparks have done a little better. They look like a gang of workmen going about their normal business, but something's not right. This is the Olympic site in Stratford in London last October, and it's the early hours of the morning. And rather than working, these guys are thieving. After using an angle grinder, they break into containers full of valuable tools and even nick a generator, working together to shift it. Talk about Team GB. The cost of their early morning crime spree totaled more than 14 grand. Make it a personal best and name these Olympic medallers tonight. Remember, all the CCTV stays online until they're caught.
Now to a case that we have featured several times on Crimewatch over the years. Liverpudlian John Sweeney was a carpenter and an artist, working his way around Britain and Europe for decades. But take a closer look at his paintings, which reveal a shocking truth that he was also a deranged killer who murdered at least 2 of his girlfriends before dismembering their bodies.
He likes to have power and control over women, and the ultimate form of power and control is to take their lives.
All of the artworks and poetry that he did, everything seemed to center around knives and axes.
John Sweeney was a controlling and violent man who for years moved from one volatile relationship to another. He murdered and mutilated women in more than one country, dumping their bodies in canals. And for years, he got away with it, with only his lurid artwork providing a true picture of his terrible crimes.
In the 1980s, Sweeney had been in a relationship with former American model Melissa Halstead. They travelled all over Europe together for many years.
Melissa obviously loved Sweeney, and I'm sure that was reciprocated by him. She was obviously trying to establish herself as a fashion photographer. Because he lived somewhat of a bohemian lifestyle, I think a lot of women would have been attracted to that. And he was well-travelled, so you could see how Melissa and other women would have been attracted to him.
Melissa soon fell in love with Sweeney, but it wasn't long before his controlling and violent side was exposed.
There were certainly 3 occasions when he was convicted of assaulting Melissa between 1987 and 1988. But on each occasion that he was actually convicted of assaulting Melissa, he would plead forgiveness to her, and she, unfortunately, took him back.
Although she hardly spoke to her family in America, Melissa would always call home on her mother's birthday.
Hi, Mom, it's Melissa. I just called to wish you a happy birthday. Have a good time and take care of yourself. Goodbye, I love you.
That answer phone message in 1989 would be the last time her family ever heard from her. Then, in 1990, a woman's body was found in a canal in the Dutch city of Rotterdam. The victim had been brutally killed and her head and feet removed, making identification almost impossible.
Well, the Dutch had obviously started an investigation, having found those remains in 1990 in Rotterdam. And it was as a result of inquiries that they did trawling through missing persons inquiries, their investigation really came to a halt. And within a couple of months of that investigation starting up, it was wound down and it was concluded because they didn't have any lines of inquiry.
By then, the one man who did know the identity of the victim had moved back to London. Sweeney had begun a new relationship with an Australian nurse, Delia Balmer. And once again, he soon became violent.
What's your problem, eh?
Delia, yet again, was I would have described as a vulnerable individual. He had actually attacked her in her home.
You women just lie all the time. I'm sick of it. Do you hear me? I'm sick of it. I am.
And at the time, he had actually threatened to kill her, and it was only through her screams that a neighbour heard and came to her assistance.
He's upstairs. He's trying to kill me.
Please.
Following the attack on Delia, they found a hold all that contained a tarpaulin, a knife, and ropes and other items.
Although Sweeney was arrested for the attack on Delia, he was released on bail. Free again, he hunted her down.
You didn't expect to see me, did you, Delia girl? You didn't expect to see me.
The frenzied attack with an axe almost killed her. She was only saved by a neighbour who fought off Sweeney with a baseball bat. Knowing the game was up, he went on the run.
He had actually inflicted that much injuries on her where she had the tips of her fingers removed, she had a punctured lung and other severe injuries. And it's only luck, I believe, why she wasn't killed. And I'm sure if she was, she would have been another victim, for a better word. Delia basically told us that he had confessed to her that he had killed an American girlfriend of his by the name of Melissa, and that he had disposed of the remains sometime back in the early 90s.
Sweeney, still wanted for the brutal attack on Delia Balmer, had by 2001 been on the run for 8 years. But it was then that 2 boys fishing on the Regent's Canal in London made a gruesome new discovery. It was another body which, just like the one found in Rotterdam, had had its head, arms and legs severed.
A hastily erected tarpaulin marks the site on the towpath where police first identified some form of human remains.
The victim was Paula Fields, a mother of 3, originally from Liverpool.
From an early stage, we were reasonably confident that we had the prime suspect for that inquiry, and that individual was John Sweeney, because we knew that they both came from Liverpool. They had a relationship, to the best of our understanding.
You're lying to me, Paula. I know you're lying to me. You're lying.
But they had chaotic lifestyles, and ultimately, I think Sweeney took the view that she was more a nuisance than a friend to him.
A few months after the discovery of Paula's body, Sweeney's 8 years on the run finally came to an end. He was arrested at a South London building site, and his violent and murderous past was soon unravelled by detectives.
When Sweeney was arrested, 2 loaded firearms were recovered, along with an awful lot of artwork and poetry. Well, they primarily depicted women being dismembered. There were references to girlfriends of his, in particular Melissa and Delia. There was, in fact, there was one that depicted it, said, "Good night, Vienna." And we all understand what that means. There was another poem that in there, it said, "Poor Melissa, chopped her up in bits, feed to the fishes."
Well, the artwork is clearly autobiographical. There are dates mentioned in the artwork, there are places in the artwork, there are weapons that he's used in the artwork, as well as some of the people that he's had a relationship with. I think some of the artwork also reveals issues about other victims that may be out there. Also, look particularly at the axe. He draws axes repeatedly in his artwork. The axe is always red as well. I think there is some significance about his constantly using axes on knives rather than guns that he would have access to. Literally, the victim would be touched by him holding the axe. The victim would see the axe. The victim would be terrorized by that.
At around this time, Dutch police reopened the case of the body found in Rotterdam as part of a wider review of unsolved murders. When they tested against Melissa's DNA, it was a perfect match. Officers were now convinced Sweeney had to be responsible for killing both Melissa and Paula.
Well, when you looked at the circumstances surrounding Melissa being found, and we were obviously then aware that Paula Fields, who was also in a relationship with him, we asked ourselves a simple question: what are the chances of him having two girlfriends who would, by accident, are killed by someone else? And when you put together the artwork and the portrait that we had, our conclusion was that he was obviously the prime suspect.
We found torsos, but we've not found the heads, the hands, the feet in some occasions. So clearly, those body parts held a greater psychological significance for Sweeney. He very carefully disposed of those body parts so that they wouldn't be found. It's a way of expressing his dominance, his control, his power over those victims, even though they're dead.
Despite the circumstantial evidence of Sweeney having close relationships with both women and the lurid artwork hinting at their murders, Sweeney denied everything.
No comment.
During the trial, the court was shown some of his macabre artwork. The prosecution were convinced it revealed Sweeney's true state of mind and exposed his demonic thirst for violence. It worked. The jury found him guilty of killing both Melissa and Paula. He will never be released.
It was a challenging investigation when you consider that we didn't have the proverbial smoking gun in terms of forensic opportunities. We didn't have any direct admissions made by him. But when you put together the documentary artwork and portrait that he had done, you could say in essence that that was a confession, and that ultimately resulted in him being convicted.
Very disturbing, Matthew. He'll never be released.
Yes, he was given a whole life sentence. The judge said the murders, the mutilation, the fact that many of the body parts have never been recovered, all added greatly to the distress of the families. He'll never get out. Sweeney will die in prison.
I remember the night the Dutch detectives came here to appeal.
Yeah, they came here. The next day, Scotland Yard detectives went there to do an appeal. Despite the murders being in different countries, they opted, in the end, for one trial. That was quite unusual. Prosecutors used a law from 1861, Section 9 of the Offences Against the Persons Act, which allows the UK national to be put on trial in this country for any murder anywhere in the world. Now, that was crucial because they could say to the jury, what are the chances of someone's partner being murdered and then dismembered? And with Sweeney, it happened twice.
And what you say twice, what about other victims?
Well, they're still trying to trace women from Sweeney's past. He's actually boasted of killing others. Criminal psychologists, the police think it's highly likely.
OK, thank you, Matthew. Now, just over 2 weeks ago, a gang broke into Cambridge University's Fitzwilliam Museum, and they stole a haul of incredibly valuable, Chinese antiquities, some dating back to the 14th century. But tonight, detectives are urgently asking for your help to try to recover them. DCI Jim McCrory from Cambridgeshire Police is here with us. Evening, Jim. This sounds like it was a very well-planned burglary.
Yes, the Fitzwilliam University Museum in Cambridge houses several major collections. Some of these items were amongst their finest. At 7:30 p.m. on Friday the 13th of April, a gang managed to force its way into the museum. Once inside, they stole a number of items from the glass cabinets and left within minutes. I'm confident that this was targeted, as the offenders clearly knew what they were looking for.
Now, just take us through briefly some of these very, very beautiful as well as valuable items.
Absolutely. There were 18 items in total stolen, and while it's impossible to put an absolute value on them, it runs into the millions. Some of the items were stolen from the Ming Dynasty, and 6 of them were from the Ming Dynasty. And you have a carved horse, you have a green and brown elephant, and you have a jade buffalo. Now, these items may well already have been sold into or offered for sale internationally. They may still be in the UK.
Now, just briefly, let's look at a couple of bits of CCTV. First of all, tell us what we're looking at.
What we're looking at is 4 males approaching the back of the museum around the time of the burglary. Now, I'm confident that somebody knows these people, and I would ask them to contact us to identify them.
And also the van, just briefly?
Yes, the van was captured on CCTV in the lane at the back of the museum at 7:30 p.m.-ish. That vehicle was stolen from London. I would ask anybody who knows where it is now or has been to get in touch with us.
OK, and people can take a closer look again, because that was pretty brief, on our website for
Thank you
Thanks very much. Astonishingly, only a few weeks before that, another similar burglary took place. This time it was at Durham University, where around about £2 million worth of Chinese artefacts were stolen. The thieves cut a hole in the wall to get in. There it is. But thankfully, the stolen items have already been recovered. Durham police are not linking the raid to the one at the Fitzwilliam Museum, but they have released an image of a man that they want to trace in connection with this Durham theft. He is 31-year-old Justin Oliver Clark. He's believed to be in the West Midlands area. If you can help in any way, then do call us now on the usual number, 0500 600 600. Right now, it's time for a last quick update on what's come in on the phones. Here's Martin.
Yes, we've had some excellent information come through. Let's start with that violent attack in Woollerton in Shropshire. More than 30 calls have come through, some excellent information on that silver Volvo. A few names suggested. Detectives want to pin things down to those EFITs. In Bath, the violent attack, we've got names. We need the man in the nightclub photograph to get in contact with us.
Busy, busy, busy. That's all we've got time for now. But don't forget that all of tonight's reconstructions and wanted faces and CCTV stay online until they are caught. The phone lines will stay open until midnight tomorrow. We're going to be back again at just 11:10 tonight with the very latest on what's been a particularly busy night. Thanks for your calls. Bye-bye for now.
Decades of clerical abuse